Here we go. Third time's a charm, right? As promised, the third installment on the most haunted places in Pennsylvania. It's that state up north, nestled between New York and Ohio with a landscape as diverse as its history. Land of the Liberty Bell and cheesesteaks that'll make your heart sing. Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, is famous for its rich history and mouth-watering food. But let me tell you something. Pennsylvania's has a whole other side. A side that's shrouded in mystery and steeped in the supernatural. A side that's darker than a coal mine at midnight. These mines, once bustling with activity, now stand silent, echoing with the whispers of the past. A side that's colder than a witch's. Well, you get the picture. The winters here can be harsh, and the chill in the air often carries more than just the bite of frost. Ghosts, hauntings, things that go bump in the night. Pennsylvania's has them all, from ghostly apparitions in old houses to unexplained phenomena in the dead of night. From the crumbling walls of abandoned asylums to the stately mansions with secrets hidden behind their elegant facades, every corner of this state has a story to tell. Pennsylvania's haunted history is richer than a squirrel's stash of nuts in autumn. And just like those nuts, these stories are hidden, waiting to be discovered. So, if you're brave enough to join me, we're going to take a little trip. A journey into the heart of Pennsylvania's haunted past again. Grab your ghost hunting gear and let's go explore. Welcome to Screamville. Byberry Mental Hospital, officially known as the Philadelphia State Hospital at Byberry, was once one of the largest and most infamous mental health facilities in the United States. Was once located in northeast Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It opened in 1907 and operated until its closure in 1990. The hospital's haunting reputation stems from its long history of overcrowding, severe abuse of patients, and reported paranormal activity. Originally, Byberry was constructed to address the mental health needs of the region, but it quickly became overcrowded. By the 1920s, the hospital's conditions were deteriorating, and it struggled to provide adequate care. The staff-to-patient ratio was low, and living conditions were bleak. Reports describe patients being neglected, often left in dirty, cramped quarters with minimal supervision. By the 1940s and 1950s, Byberry's population had ballooned to over 7,000 patients, far beyond its capacity, and the hospital's dark reputation grew. In 1946, a damning expose by Life magazine brought national attention to the severe mistreatment of patients. Investigators found patients in soiled clothing, physically restrained for extended periods, and wandering aimlessly in overcrowded wards. There were reports of abuse, neglect, and experimental treatments without proper oversight. Some patients were allegedly subjected to forced lobotomies and electroshock therapy, often without consent. The poor conditions persisted through the 1960s and 1970s, despite reform attempts. By the 1980s, Byberry was under increased scrutiny and was gradually downsized until it was finally shut down in 1990. After its closure, the buildings were left abandoned and quickly deteriorated. Byberry became a popular destination for urban explorers, ghost hunters, and thrill seekers. The site became infamous for paranormal reports, with witnesses claiming to have experienced strange sounds, eerie voices, and apparitions. Many visitors reported hearing whispers, cries, and screams echoing through the empty corridors. These sounds were often attributed to the tormented spirits of former patients. Some claim to have seen shadowy figures resembling patients in hospital gowns, or even doctors and nurses roaming the halls. Many visitors described an overwhelming sense of dread, as though unseen eyes are following them. Some explorers had reported feeling sudden cold spots or being lightly touched, as if an unseen presence were reaching out to them. Byberry Mental Hospital was fully demolished in 2006, erasing most of the physical remnants of the site. However, the stories of the horrors endured there and the hauntings that allegedly followed continue to circulate. The former hospital's history remains a sobering reminder of the need for humane and compassionate mental health care. For many, the spirits reportedly lingering at Byberry serve as symbols of the suffering and neglect that occurred within its walls. Fort Mifflin, also known as Fort Island Battery, has a storied and significant history as one of America's oldest forts. Located on Mud Island on the Delaware River in Philadelphia, it has served as a critical site in several wars and stands as a National Historic Landmark today. Here's a detailed look at its history. Fort Mifflin's origins trace back to 1771, when British engineers began constructing a fort on Mud Island to protect Philadelphia. Its strategic location allowed it to control access to the city by sea. The fort was named after Thomas Mifflin, a major general in the Continental Army, and later governor of Pennsylvania. When the American Revolution erupted, the fort fell under American control, and Continental forces continued to build up its defenses. The fort is most famous for its role in the Revolutionary War. In 1777, the British sought to capture Philadelphia, and had already occupied the city by September. However, Fort Mifflin and the nearby Fort Mercer blocked British supply lines up the Delaware River. Determined to secure their stronghold, the British launched a brutal assault on the fort. From October 10th to November 15th, 1777, British forces relentlessly bombarded the fort, which was defended by about 400 American soldiers under Colonel Samuel Smith. Despite being heavily outnumbered and outgunned, the Americans held the fort for 5 weeks. This delay allowed General George Washington to regroup and prepare his forces for the coming winter at Valley Forge. Finally, on November 15th, the fort was overwhelmed, and the Americans were forced to evacuate. The heroic defense, however, is celebrated as one of the war's most gallant stands, earning the fort the nickname, "the Fort that Saved America." Following the Revolution, the fort was left in ruins, but the United States government saw its importance and began rebuilding it in the 1790s as part of the first system of coastal fortifications. French engineer Pierre-Charles L'Enfant was instrumental in designing the new layout, which included stone structures that would last far longer than the original wooden buildings. By 1802, the fort was fully reconstructed, with thicker walls and reinforced defenses. During the War of 1812, Fort Mifflin was prepared for conflict, but no British forces ever challenged it. During the Civil War, the fort served a different purpose. It became a military prison for Confederate POWs, Union soldiers accused of desertion, and other prisoners. The fort's central building, known as Casemate #11, was a notorious holding area, housing hundreds of prisoners in harsh conditions. Notable inmates included William H. Howe, a Union deserter who was publicly executed on the fort's grounds in 1864. Fort Mifflin's use as a prison during this period marked a grim chapter in its history, adding an air of mystery and fear that persists to this day. By the end of the Civil War, Fort Mifflin's military significance began to wane, though it was still used sporadically by the military. In 1904, it was officially decommissioned as a coastal defense fort, but it found new life during World War I. The U.S. Army used Fort Mifflin as a munitions depot, storing large quantities of ammunition and supplies. It remained in this role throughout World War II as well. After World War II, Fort Mifflin was abandoned and fell into disrepair. By the 1960s, local preservationists began efforts to save the fort from demolition. In 1962, it was designated a National Historic Landmark, and the Philadelphia preservation community helped restore it to reflect its 18th century appearance. Today, Fort Mifflin is a living museum open to the public. Visitors can explore its historic buildings, barracks, and underground casemates. The site hosts historical reenactments, educational programs, and paranormal investigations, as it is considered one of America's most haunted sites. Tales of ghostly apparitions, disembodied voices, and other eerie encounters are common, with legends tied to soldiers, prisoners, and even children who reportedly perished there. Fort Mifflin is known for numerous ghost stories and reports of supernatural phenomena. Among the most famous spirits is the Screaming Woman, believed to be the ghost of a woman who was either a prisoner or possibly the wife of a soldier who died of yellow fever. Visitors who explore the fort often see soldiers cleaning their guns, even when no historical actors are present. Many will catch a whiff of a mysterious aroma like bread baking or wood fire. Some visitors even claim to have been touched, pushed, and pulled by phantom hands. One of the most notorious ghosts at Fort Mifflin is known as the Faceless Man. Visitors report seeing his ghostly figure wandering the grounds dressed in Civil War attire. Many believe this spirit belongs to William H. Howe, who was executed at the fort during the Civil War. Some ghost hunters paint Howe as a villainous figure, suggesting he was a ruthless, murderous outlaw. They claim his spirit is malevolent, seeking revenge within the ruins of the fort. This eerie tale might be enough to keep children awake at night, but the real story of William H. Howe is even more compelling. Historical records reveal that Howe was a 25-year-old German farmer who joined the Union Army. A skilled marksman, he was celebrated for his bravery at Fredericksburg, often remaining on the battlefield day and night. His comrades admired his courage and unbreakable spirit. Yet, Howe couldn't escape a battle raging within himself. He developed a severe case of dysentery, then referred to as inflammation of the bowels, which became the leading cause of death for Civil War soldiers due to its severe symptoms. Howe's fierce determination kept him fighting his illness even after his regiment's medical tent burned down in battle. Seeking treatment, he traveled with fellow soldiers to Washington. After seeing a doctor, he returned home to recover, bedridden for 2 months, unaware that trouble awaited him for not reporting back to his unit. One midnight, his enrolling officer arrived at his home with 3 other men, all reportedly drunk. When they began making noise outside his bedroom, Howe fired 2 shots from his gun to scare them off. Tragically, both shots hit his officer, fatally wounding him. Howe was arrested and held at the infamous Eastern State Penitentiary until his trial. Despite his pleas for mercy in a letter to President Abraham Lincoln, he received no leniency. With desertion rates rising, authorities wanted to set an example. Community members, sympathetic to Howe's plight, attended his execution in support. In his final moments, he addressed the crowd. "I never sought the life of the man I killed. I never wished it, and I feel God will pardon me for taking it as I did. I know my fellow soldiers and officers in the Army never blamed my leaving, as I was an invalid and had no hospital to go to in my regiment." A bag was placed over his head, hence his faceless appearance in ghostly form, and he was hanged. The truth of Howe's story contrasts sharply with the dark folklore that surrounds him. Far from a vengeful spirit, he was a man whose life ended in tragedy. Fort Mifflin is a rare example of a Revolutionary War battlefield still intact. Its role in protecting Philadelphia and delaying British forces made it a key factor in the success of the American Revolution. Today it stands as a testament to American resilience and fortitude, providing a window into the country's early military history and a glimpse into the lives of those who fought, lived, and died within its walls. Now, for our next destination, we're heading to a place you might not expect to find on a haunted road trip, a library. But not just any library, mind you. This is the Carnegie Library of Homestead, and let me tell you, it's got stories to tell. The Carnegie Library of Homestead, located in Munhall, Pennsylvania, is one of the oldest libraries funded by industrialist Andrew Carnegie, and holds a complex, storied history. Built in 1898, it was initially designed to serve steelworkers and their families from Carnegie's nearby Homestead steelworks. The library was part of Carnegie's broader vision to provide educational and cultural opportunities for the working class, aiming to uplift the community by offering free access to knowledge, art, and music. The library complex includes not only reading rooms, but also a music hall and a pool, reflecting Carnegie's belief in the power of cultural enrichment. Despite its noble intentions, the Carnegie Library has acquired a reputation for hauntings, largely connected to the library's association with the grueling, sometimes dangerous lives of the local steelworkers. The Homestead Strike of 1892, a violent labor dispute that saw clashes between striking steelworkers and Pinkerton agents, cast a long shadow over the area and is often cited as one reason for the library's hauntings. Though the library was built after the strike, many believe the residual energy of the unrest, resulting in several deaths and injuries, contributes to the ghostly presence felt within the building. Visitors and staff have reported numerous paranormal occurrences at the library over the years. These include shadowy figures spotted in the hallways, unexplained cold spots, footsteps echoing in empty rooms, and the sound of whispering voices. The music hall, in particular, is said to be one of the most haunted areas, with accounts of strange noises and sightings of apparitions thought to be former patrons or perhaps spirits connected to the Homestead Steelworks. Some also believe that Andrew Carnegie himself may haunt the building, ensuring that his vision for the library endures. The combination of a tumultuous local history, the intense emotions surrounding the steel industry, and the library's age have all helped cement the Carnegie Library of Homestead as one of Pennsylvania's most haunted locations. Next, the Betsy Ross House in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is famous as the alleged site where Betsy Ross, a seamstress and upholsterer, crafted the first American flag. The house is an iconic historical site and a popular destination for those interested in American history and Revolutionary War lore. However, beyond its place in history, it has also garnered a reputation as a haunted location, with numerous ghostly sightings reported over the years. The house itself was built around 1740 in the Georgian architectural style typical of the time, and is one of Philadelphia's oldest structures. The house originally served as both a residence and a workspace, aligning with Ross's role as an upholsterer and seamstress. Betsy Ross is said to have lived and worked here from 1773 to 1786, though historians still debate whether this was her exact residence, as records from that time are scarce. Betsy Ross, born Elizabeth Griscom in 1752, was a Quaker who married John Ross, an upholsterer. Her marriage to Ross led to her exclusion from the Quaker faith, as it was against the rules to marry outside of the religion. After her husband's death in a munitions explosion in 1776, Betsy took up upholstery work to support herself. According to popular legend, Betsy was visited by George Washington and other prominent members of the Continental Congress, who requested that she create a flag for the nascent United States. Although there is limited documentation to support this story, it has become an enduring part of American folklore. In the late 19th century, interest in preserving historical landmarks grew, and the Betsy Ross House became a focal point. By the early 20th century, the property was restored by the city, and it officially opened to the public as a museum in 1937. Since then, millions of visitors have come to the site to explore the history of the flag and to experience a tangible link to the past. The Betsy Ross House is often described as one of Philadelphia's most haunted locations. The haunting is attributed mainly to Betsy Ross herself and her first husband, John Ross. Visitors and staff have reported sightings of a ghostly woman believed to be Betsy Ross. Her apparition is most commonly seen in the basement, where she would have spent much time working on upholstery. Some guests report feeling a sudden chill or sensing her presence as they descend into the basement. Many have reported hearing soft, ghostly whispers throughout the house, especially on the second floor. Some even claim to hear Betsy Ross singing or softly speaking as if communicating with unseen individuals. These voices are often accompanied by a feeling of unease or cold spots. Paranormal investigators claim to have detected a male presence also, particularly around the stairs. This ghostly figure is believed to be John Ross, perhaps searching for his beloved wife or keeping watch over the home. In addition to the apparitions, phantom footsteps are often reported in the upper levels of the house. These footsteps sometimes follow visitors through rooms, adding an eerie element to the experience. Cold spots are also frequent, with temperatures reportedly dropping significantly for brief periods, especially near Betsy's bedroom. After hours, staff members have noted lights flickering or turning on and off by themselves. These strange occurrences are typically attributed to Betsy Ross's spirit or residual energy from the era in which she lived. Skeptics suggest that some of the strange phenomena can be explained by the age of the building, which naturally settles and creaks, creating odd noises and drafts. However, paranormal investigators maintain that the consistent reports from visitors over the years are difficult to dismiss, and they continue to visit the site in hopes of documenting evidence of the supernatural. Whether or not the ghostly sightings are real, the Betsy Ross House remains a deeply significant location in American history. The haunted reputation only adds to its mystique, drawing in visitors who are intrigued not only by the story of the first American flag, but also by the possibility of encountering Betsy Ross herself. The David Stewart Farm, located near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, is a historic property steeped in Civil War history and paranormal lore. This farm played a pivotal role during the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863, serving as a field hospital for Confederate and Union soldiers. Its gruesome history has given rise to tales of hauntings, and today it's known as one of the most haunted locations in Gettysburg. The farm dates back to the 19th century and was owned by David Stewart, a local farmer and resident. The farm was primarily used for agricultural purposes, typical of properties in the Gettysburg area. But its fate changed dramatically in July 1863 during the American Civil War. The Battle of Gettysburg was one of the most significant and bloodiest battles of the Civil War, lasting from July 1st to July 3rd, 1863. The David Stewart Farm became a makeshift field hospital where wounded soldiers from both sides were brought for treatment. Medical practices at the time were crude, with limited sanitation, inadequate pain management, and a lack of sterilization. Amputations were frequent. And with limited resources, many soldiers succumbed to their injuries on the farm. Those who didn't survive were often buried in hastily dug graves nearby. The farmhouse and its surrounding areas were witness to immense suffering and death, which left a lingering impression on the property. The traumatic events, combined with the violent deaths of young soldiers, are said to be the source of the hauntings at the David Stewart farm. The farm's reputation for paranormal activity is rooted in the sheer scale of death and suffering experienced on the property. Many believe that the intense emotional and physical trauma endured by soldiers during the battle left an imprint on the property, creating what paranormal enthusiasts call residual hauntings. These hauntings are thought to replay events like echoes in time, and the residual energy might be responsible for sightings and sounds associated with the battle. Visitors and paranormal investigators have reported numerous ghostly encounters at the David Stewart farm. Sightings include the apparitions of soldiers in Civil War uniforms, some of whom appear to be searching for aid or lost comrades. Shadowy figures, misty forms, and phantom footsteps are common, particularly at night. People have reported hearing voices and cries as if wounded soldiers are still calling for help. Some have also heard what sounds like battle sounds, including gunfire, clashing weapons, and anguished cries. Paranormal accounts suggest that the spirits of soldiers who died on the property remain at the David Stewart farm. These soldiers are believed to be restless due to the violent and abrupt end to their lives, far from their families and homes. Many visitors have felt a sudden chill, and some report a sense of sadness as if they are in the presence of spirits still mourning their untimely deaths. Both Confederate and Union soldier apparitions are reported. Some accounts describe a soldier who appears to be missing limbs or has visible injuries, echoing the trauma of those treated or who perished in the makeshift field hospital. Visitors often report strange odors, such as the scent of blood or medicinal antiseptics, even though there is no logical source. Cold spots, areas of sudden, unexplained drops in temperature, are also commonly reported and are believed to be indicators of spiritual presence. Some claim to hear sounds that might be associated with the medical practices of the time, such as sawing, associated with amputations, and moans of pain. These sounds are described as residual energy rather than active hauntings, playing like echoes from the past. The farm is considered a key destination for paranormal enthusiasts visiting Gettysburg. Paranormal investigators have conducted numerous investigations on the property, often capturing electronic voice phenomena, EVPs, ghostly photographs, and other indicators of supernatural activity. Its haunted reputation continues to draw visitors who are fascinated by the combination of history and the paranormal. The David Stewart farm stands as a somber reminder of the Battle of Gettysburg's toll on soldiers and the local community. With its tragic past and well-documented hauntings, it remains an enduring symbol of the lingering impact of the Civil War and the mystery surrounding sites of great suffering and loss. Coulterville Cemetery, located in the small community of Coulter, Pennsylvania, has a mysterious and chilling history that has attracted paranormal enthusiasts for years. This cemetery is said to be haunted by a lady in white, among other supernatural occurrences. Its eerie reputation stems from both local folklore and the strange experiences reported by visitors over the years. Origins and early history. Coulterville Cemetery was established in the 1800s as a burial ground for residents of Coulter, a small mining town in western Pennsylvania. The town was populated primarily by miners and their families, many of whom experienced hardship and tragedy as part of the dangerous coal mining industry that dominated the area. The cemetery served as a final resting place for numerous individuals who lost their lives in mining accidents, as well as for the town's residents who succumbed to illness and old age. The lady in white was a young woman who died tragically, though the specifics of her story vary. Some say she was a bride-to-be who died just before her wedding day, possibly due to illness or an accident. Others claim she was a heartbroken woman who took her own life after losing her lover in a mining accident. The lady in white is usually described as wearing a long, flowing white dress and is often seen wandering the cemetery grounds at night, appearing to mourn. Witnesses claim she glows faintly, as if illuminated by an otherworldly light, and some have reported seeing her vanish into thin air. She is typically described as harmless but melancholic, instilling a sense of sadness and longing in those who encounter her. The haunted reputation of Coulterville Cemetery can be attributed to several factors, including its historical connection to tragedy, and the recurring tales of ghostly apparitions. Many of the people buried in Coulterville Cemetery lived challenging and, in some cases, tragic lives. The coal mining industry was perilous, and accidents were unfortunately common, often leading to fatalities. These unexpected and violent deaths may have left some spirits restless, resulting in a haunted atmosphere. Local lore suggests that some miners' spirits remain tied to the cemetery, either due to the nature of their deaths or because they were buried without proper farewells. The Lady in White is said to be the cemetery's most active spirit. Accounts of her appearance go back decades, with reports of her being seen moving through the cemetery grounds. Some visitors claim to hear soft weeping or feel a sudden chill when near the spot where she is often seen. Those who have come across the Lady in White describe an overwhelming sadness, as though they are experiencing her grief. Numerous visitors to Coulterville Cemetery have reported hearing footsteps behind them when no one is there. Others describe the feeling of being watched or followed. These sensations are particularly common at dusk or during the night. Some report cold spots, areas of sudden, unexplainable drops in temperature, as they walk through certain sections of the cemetery, even on warm nights. Strange lights and shadowy figures are also commonly reported at Coulterville Cemetery. The lights often resemble faint orbs or flashes, while shadowy forms are said to dart between tombstones, disappearing as soon as they are noticed. Paranormal investigators believe these phenomena could be signs of spirit activity, potentially linked to the lives of those who rest in the cemetery. Paranormal investigators have captured electronic voice phenomena, EVPs, at Coulterville Cemetery, with some recordings containing faint whispers, cries, or even names. These recordings add to the cemetery's reputation as they provide seemingly tangible evidence of supernatural activity. Some investigators have also photographed what appear to be ghostly figures or misty shapes near certain graves. Local stories and beliefs in the supernatural play a significant role in the cemetery's haunted reputation. As tales of encounters with the Lady in White and other unexplained events circulated over the years, they became embedded in the local culture, heightening the cemetery's eerie reputation. Some believe that these stories have fueled the paranormal activity, as they contribute to an atmosphere of fear and expectation that might attract or amplify spiritual presences. Coulterville Cemetery remains a popular destination for ghost hunters and curious visitors. Paranormal groups frequently visit the cemetery to investigate its reported hauntings, and many claim to have experienced strange sensations, seen apparitions, or captured unusual sounds on recording devices. Some visitors are drawn by the local legends, especially the tale of the Lady in White, while others come seeking to document their own paranormal encounters. The cemetery's haunted reputation continues to grow as more people report their experiences. Coulterville Cemetery is now considered one of Pennsylvania's hidden gems for paranormal enthusiasts, offering an atmosphere steeped in local history, mystery, and the supernatural. Raymeyer's Hollow, located in Stewartstown, Pennsylvania, is steeped in dark folklore, hex magic, and alleged hauntings. Its history revolves around the tragic murder of Nelson Raymeyer, a self-described powwow healer whose life and untimely death are central to the lore of the area. This rural Pennsylvania locale, also known as Hex Hollow, is often mentioned in connection with supernatural happenings and eerie tales tied to the 1928 murder that became a nationally recognized court case, the York Witch Trial. Nelson Raymeyer was born in the late 19th century and practiced powwow, a form of Pennsylvania Dutch folk magic that combined elements of faith healing, rituals, and herbal remedies. Powwow practices have their origins in Pennsylvania German or Pennsylvania Dutch culture, which blended Christian prayers with folk rituals aimed at curing illnesses, warding off evil, and bringing good fortune. Raymeyer was a well-known figure in the community, with a reputation as both a healer and a hex doctor who could lift curses. However, as with many folk practitioners, his practices also attracted suspicion. In 1928, Raymeyer's life took a tragic turn. A local man named John Blymeyer believed he had been cursed, suffering from various personal and financial misfortunes. Blymeyer, himself a former powwow practitioner, consulted with a fellow healer, who convinced him that his hardships were due to a hex cast upon him by someone with supernatural power. This healer identified Raymeyer as the alleged source of Blymeyer's misfortune. On November 27, 1928, Blymeyer, along with two young accomplices, John Curry and Wilbert Hess, broke into Raymeyer's farmhouse in a bid to lift the supposed hex. They believed that to break the curse, they needed to burn Raymeyer's spell book and bury a lock of his hair. The trio demanded Raymeyer hand over his book, but a struggle ensued, during which they brutally beat and eventually killed him. The attackers then attempted to set his body and home on fire to destroy any evidence of the murder. However, the fire never fully took hold, leaving the house and Raymeyer's body relatively undamaged. The murder shocked the local community and soon gained national attention, becoming known as the York Witch Trial. During the trial, the defense argued that Blymer was genuinely terrified, believing he was under a curse, and had acted in desperation to break it. The media sensationalized the story, portraying Raymeyer as a dark sorcerer and the Hollow as a place of occult practices. All three men were ultimately convicted, though the hex-related motive gave the trial a notorious legacy that contributed to Raymeyer's Hollow's haunted reputation. Over the years, tales of hauntings in Raymeyer's Hollow have circulated widely. The house itself, with its dark history and associations with hex magic, has become a focal point for paranormal enthusiasts and ghost hunters. Visitors report seeing strange lights in the area around the house, particularly at night, and shadowy figures moving near the property. Many people feel sudden drops in temperature or overwhelming senses of dread when approaching or entering the house. Some claim to see Raymeyer's ghost wandering the property or hear disembodied voices, believed to be the lingering spirits of those involved in the tragedy. There is a local belief that the ground around the house is cursed, with some people attributing strange illnesses, bad luck, or misfortune to visiting the site. Today, Raymeyer's Hollow continues to draw curiosity seekers, thrill seekers, and those fascinated by the occult and supernatural. The farmhouse remains privately owned and has been preserved as a historical site. The story of Raymeyer's murder and the York Witch Trial is still told as a cautionary tale about superstition, fear, and the dark side of human nature. It remains one of Pennsylvania's most infamous sites, and the haunting legends surrounding it have solidified Raymeyer's Hollow as a landmark for supernatural folklore. The case is an eerie reminder of the power of belief in curses and hexes, and the tragic extremes to which such beliefs can drive people. Pennsylvania, with its rich history and shadowy corners, holds countless more tales of the unexplained. So keep your lanterns lit and your imaginations open, dear listeners. This journey is not done. There will be one more video to wrap up this haunted journey in this extraordinary state. If you enjoyed this video and just love ghost stories, please be sure to subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.